moment you've all been waiting for. Tonight's main attraction. I present to you International Freethinkers. Listening to the We Are Sober podcast.
Welcome, everyone. Hello, we are here. We are back. Good evening. How's everyone doing?
Excellent.
Feels like it's been forever since I've been on here.
Awesome.
Yep.
I want to know when the podcast introduction awards are going out, because I think we're gonna win.
I think we're gonna
I
win.
can feel that.
I would be pretty sad if we didn't. That would just, break my heart. But hey, who knows? Yeah, we were off a week. I was on vacation. I failed to put together any type of clip thingy to just bridge on into the week. But hey, I was in Hawaii, so I didn't really care. But welcome.
Anyway.
It was fun. I enjoyed myself. Like, you'd be surprised how extra safe and comfortable it is in Hawaii. Like, mask mandates, are pretty heavily and legit. The fact that I had to, if I wasn't already like fully vaccinated, you had to do your COVID testing within 72 hours of getting on the plane. Then you had to scan a QR code and wear a wristband. They check that on and off before you get on the plane to Hawaii. And then all this other precautions too. I'm like, Hawaii has it down pat. And then once it reached the final day, I had to come back to California. I'm like, oh crap, now I feel less safe. Because you don't have those type of, hard requirements coming into California. I'm just like, damn, we need to step up our game in here.
Did you feel unfree? Your freedoms were just slipping away?
Not at all. Surprisingly, no. The fact that I had to wear a mask all the time, but I was still, went into stores, went out to dinner. Each time I went to a restaurant, I had to fill out a contact, person sheet, like contact tracing sheet. I was like, damn, I don't even do this here.
Did you go to an ABC store?
Dude, there's like ABC stores on every fucking corner. Yes, I went to an ABC store. Those things are like worse than Starbucks. And Honolulu cookies.
I don't know if Kelly knows he's muted or if he's talking.
Oh, Kelly, dear.
And he's just muted.
Your face is moving.
But no sound.
Might be your mic.
Am I on now?
Yeah.
There you
go. We missed
whatever. I wanted to make sure that you were still able to breathe while you had that mask on.
Yeah.
I was still able to breathe. I got around just fine, fully functional, and still had a good time.
You didn't absorb all the carbon dioxide back into your brain, which caused seizures and I don't know, farting, because that's what masks do apparently.
Seizures, no. Farting, yes. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
You knew it. You wore a mask when you farted, therefore correlation causation.
Exactly.
That's the thing that's going on Twitter apparently now.
Yes.
The whole Nicki Minaj cousins
Oh,
swollen
God.
testicles thing. I was just like,
I heard of
okay.
that. And I gotta look into that.
Well, essentially what happened was like Nicki Minaj, I guess, tweeted that like her cousin in I forgot, I think Trinidad or something.
Trinidad, Tobago,
yeah, took the vaccine and then had like swollen cousin's friend, even worse, friend, took the vaccine and got like swollen testicles. Therefore, you need to be prepared and look into this stuff. And I'm not going to judge you if you take it or not. Everyone's just like,
it went further than that.
Oh, really?
He's now no longer fertile. He's infertile.
Yeah, and they had like
the girl that he was engaged to left him.
And they had like I don't know who exactly it was. There's some official in Trinidad and Tobago who was like, this did not happen. This is not what the vaccine does. And then there's people like Fauci had to respond to that. And so everyone's just putting things like, I got the vaccine and then I started doing drugs. Well, I mean, I was doing drugs before, but then I started doing them right after I got the vaccine. And like, do your research, or I respect your whatever, something like that. And everyone's just like, it's just a bunch of those kind of things popping up on Twitter.
Pretty epic saga.
Like my father got the vaccine and he has prostate cancer. I mean, he had it before, but now he has prostate cancer and still has it. And it's just like, okay.
It's been going on nonstop since then. She's calling it like swollen balls gate or something. On
some crazy.
He was on like Fox and they were going crazy about it. So it's
testicle gate. I don't know.
It's
testicle gate.
That's awesome.
You know, I guess it makes sense because they usually take a grain of truth and just completely take a left turn with it, right? Mm-hmm. Except what it is if you get COVID, even mild COVID, there is some changes that can happen with your vascular system.
Sure.
Long-term COVID, and there has definitely been reproductive health issues with it, and possible long-term reproductive health issues.
Blood clotting.
Yes,
blood clotting issues, issues with, blood flow in general. So if you care about your wiener, folks, get your vaccine.
Or your balls.
Or your balls.
A lot of tiny little capillaries.
That doesn't apply to half of the panel here.
And not just those. Humans with other reproductive organs, are not immune to problems with COVID as well.
Wieners, balls, and eggs. Okay, moving on. Before I just get too far in. Let's say hi to the chat. Hello, Kelly. Actually, this is your first time back with us in a while. How you been?
Yeah, been good. Been really busy, really tired. When they had some things done, and
Well, good to see you.
I'm happy to be back. I really am. I feel
happy
like I
was
back. Like it's been a long time, and it has been a long time. So
it's been a long time. You should have left.
You set up your new sexy shop, man.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
This is my new office. The shelves were already here. I was going to take them out, and I thought, nah, leave them there. Put stuff on them.
Yeah, nice.
That's good.
Hello, Secular Rarity. Thank you for joining us. Bar, good to see you too. If you haven't already checked it out, I did an exclusive full-length deep dive interview with Bar. Very, very heavy, good conversation with him. Definitely will revisit with him again on my channel, which I'm slowly developing soon. So stay tuned for that. I was, working on content before vacation, kind of working on it while on vacation. And now I'm ready to kind of kick off all that good stuff. So stay tuned for all that good noise. Eddie, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. I did say hi to Christine because Christine is amazing. And Theo, I do see you too. Hi, good evening. Good. Most of everyone's here. I like this. Good. Come through. Yes. Yes, multi balls. Thank you so much. So obviously we have a special guest. Thank you so much for joining us, HellsBells. It's so good to see you, my dear. You have been doing great things on the ACD server. You were on Secular Sexuality a couple weeks ago. You've been a long time volunteer now with RFR, our Recovering from Religion. So it is good to have you, and we have this discussion with you this evening. Please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I've been so excited for this all day long. So I've been on this giddy trip all day long. So it's really great. So yeah, my 1 year anniversary of volunteering with RFR is going to come up in November. I went into our sheets and I looked up when I started, and I was like, oh my God, it's almost a year, which blows my mind. So this is part of one of the reasons that I'm excited to be on this is part of the ambassador work that I'm trying to do to get the word out about what Recovering from Religion does. and trying to offer more of that resource out into the world, like because usually ambassadors, you go to like fairs or like like pride events or like stuff out in the community, but pandemic, and I live in Florida, so I'm not feeling super excited to be around people right now. So this is a great opportunity to get that message out about recovering from religion. I also, I'm a hero supporter. That means that I help train agents so they know how to talk to people that call in or chat into our line, and how to have those conversations, and I like we started monitoring them a little bit in the beginning, so if they had any stumbling blocks, we can step in and say, hey, you can say this or offer this resource or whatever. And so I did that too, and like I monitor chat rooms and just offer any sort of support I can. Oh, and I'm also a virtual support group leader, so I do a virtual support group. If you go to meetup.com, put in recovering from religion, I do the virtual chat group every first Sunday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I do that, and people come in and we basically have open conversations with people, whatever they're struggling with in their doubt, or if it's family issues, stuff like that. Like the last, we were a week this month, so like this past Sunday, we talked about sexuality, LGBTQ plus issues in religion, clergy, people leaving the clergy, and we had a big discussion about that. And we also talked about baking. So those are the type of conversations that we have, which is really great. And then we also started a women's only chapter for the virtual support group, and I will be co-hosting that on October 28th with another agent, another female agent. So if you female identify, we totally we're welcoming that sort of population in as well. So I do a bunch of different things with RFR.
Wow. And you said it has been like a year now. So you've definitely progressed and done so much more since then. So kudos to you. I know with you, also our good friend Giggler, I think he's still volunteering also, right? Giggler is?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. And then I know a few other of our facilitators and our moderators are also our farm volunteers. So the good work that you all do and, supporting that organization and, having to listen to folks call in and provide those resources. I know that's hard, heavy work. I know I think I utilized the call in at least twice myself. The first time was like a really, really like a really sinking point for me. I don't know who I spoke to. I can't recall the person's name, but I just spilled my guts, like ugly crying. And then, good-hearted people like that will just listen to that. And I'm sure you amongst other people that volunteer for this get that a lot. The ugly cry over the phone, and all you can do is, because you can't. It's important for those that call in to realize that you yourselves are not therapists. You volunteer to offer guidance and support, to walk you through the steps to find an appropriate therapist to help with that religious trauma that they've been experiencing, or those questions that they have to try and remove themselves out of religion. So it's important to remember that. So that can be tough to deal with, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's really wonderful, the training that we get, though, because we're just there. A lot of these people are just looking for empathetic, non-judgmental ear, and usually the people around them, they can't talk about their doubt. They can't talk about their feelings about religion and the damage that it's done to them, and they're just looking, most of the time, they're just looking to get things off their chest, or they do have questions that they're struggling with and stuff like that. And they just want someone to say, it's okay. It's okay that you're doubting, and kind of walk them through, those doubts and stuff like that. And a good portion of the people that we get don't need therapy. They're just looking to work through those they're going through their deconstruction process, and they're just looking for a resource or just an empathetic ear to deal with those emotions and the thoughts that they're having. But because we're aligned with the Secular Therapy Project, and I am going to put it out there that we are desperate and we are always looking for secular therapists. So if anybody's listening to me and you would like to get involved as a secular therapist, please contact seculartherapy.org, because we are looking for therapists to be a part of our network.
And I meant to put that link in the description. Justin, since you're the one with the multi-screens, I'm gonna leave it to you to put it in the chat for me, please. But yes, seculartherapy.org is also an important resource to go to as well. So we'll provide that link in the description and in the chat as well. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so we were like, that's a really good resource that we offer to people that are looking for something. Because in the agents and the people that we do, you can, after like course of a conversation, you can kind of feel these people wanting more, like if they're especially like sometimes they're suffering from like religious trauma syndrome or PTSD or anxiety or general depression and stuff. And we're not therapists, we're volunteers, we're listeners, we offer an empathetic ear, but we're not qualified to diagnose anyone or offer therapy or anything like that. So we want to be able to say like, hey, you know what, I can't give this to you, but here's a resource you can go to. And I think that's a really important component of mental health, because I don't think, like sometimes I think, like especially in the religious community, I don't think they realize the damage and the anxiety and all these things that come from religion that people are dealing with. And like, I even hear it in like my daily life. Like people are like, why do you volunteer for recovering from religion? Like, why do you need to recover from that? And I get really kind of bristled when someone says that like religion doesn't cause harm or it doesn't cause any damage. It bothers me a lot because I hear all the time. I have conversations every week with someone that is damaged from religion. So don't tell me it doesn't cause any harm. And that's why the work that I do. And that's why I volunteer for them, because I know that the damage that it does. And it just pisses me off that people don't have that more, like you would like, you would never say that to someone that went through like sexual abuse trauma or child abuse or battered spouse syndrome or anything like that. But if it's religion, they kind of give it a little bit of a pass, because the idea is that religion is positive. It doesn't cause any harm.
It's masked being positive. Yeah,
it's masked as being positive. But those of us that have either been brought up in religion or have known people that have come from religion, you always hear stories about the damage that it did to them. So so that's why I'm so passionate about the work that I do with them, because I rather be a solution, a path on the way to the solution to help people be better, than to live in a world of false belief and magical thinking and thinking, and not have the ability to solve their own problems, to live a secular life and be free from the shackles that religion has put on people.
Yeah. Roland, I think you were going to say something.
Well, I was just saying the same thing with religion, is that if you were having some sort of problem with it, in their view, it's somehow your fault. It's the devil has gotten to you because you did something sinful. You're just not praying hard enough. You don't believe hard enough. So all you have to do is just entrench yourself more in the exact thing that is causing the harm, and that's the solution. And it's like that's not the solution. It's just it's not the fact that you lusted after a woman and now you feel bad about it. Oh, you just have to pray harder to Jesus and that fixes it. It's like, no, the whole point is you're saying this is wrong and there's really nothing wrong with it. It's just we're human and that's what happens.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to acknowledge one thing that Eddie said, and I recall, Eddie, I think I was in the voice channel with you in this discussion between you and this person. I had a lady on Discord last night while I was on a stage in an atheist server threatening suicide. I talked to her for 2 hours, imploring her, to seek help and trying to get her calm. I think this is key because it's very important to not try to I guess you could say, offer psychiatric medical advice, it's good to make the effort to point to the appropriate resources, but it is inappropriate to suggest that, oh, you may have this such and such diagnosis, maybe you should talk to this type of doctor, or maybe you should look into this type of medication or whatever. That is something you should not do. Even for me as a nurse, I don't condone offering any type of medical advice to anyone I speak to. I recognize certain signs and symptoms of various other things, but I lack very little knowledge about the therapy aspects of all that stuff. But Eddie, like Aunt Jer said, there are pointed resources both in that server and of course what we listed in the description. But it's a good reminder to be sure to just point. It's good to be that active listening ear to someone that's pouring out what they're feeling, just, similar to what HellsBells does and everyone else. But, definitely don't offer them any type of medical advice or incentive. That can be even more dangerous. Yeah.
I mean, one of the
yeah,
issues...
and that's...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Justin. It's fine.
I want to say one of the issues that go along with that, with giving medical advice or giving assistance that you're not qualified to, is that person could feel justified in not seeking out legitimate solutions and legitimate assistance. They could be looking for an easier way to get out of their situation than seeking the professional help and the help that they actually need by talking to somebody and getting like a temporary fix. So so that's something that we've seen in a lot of chats online and voice chats and stuff, is that, I'm going through a tough time, and this and that. And once people start saying, hey, you should go see a doctor, or you should go see a therapist, or you should go get some help, and here are all these resources, they're like, oh no, I don't need that, I just want to talk to you guys. And in some cases that's fine, but there's a point where you have to say, look, we're not qualified to have this conversation, and we want to be here and we'll listen. But once you start going into like, what medications should I take, or what therapies should I do, or anything along those lines, they're kind of sidestepping the process.
No.
And it could prevent them from getting real help.
And that's a really fine line to walk between like giving advice, because giving advice to someone that you're not qualified to give advice to, and trying to be an empathetic support space for them. It's a dance a lot of the times, because you for myself, like I've been a person that has suffered from anxiety, and when someone starts telling me about their anxiety issues, my immediate reaction is I want to tell them what worked for me, but that's not my, I can say that, I did this and this, but I don't want to do that because that might not be right for them. So I'm always trying to find that balance of, how do I help a person without giving them advice, because they're going to take that as gospel. They're like, oh, you suffer from anxiety too, and that worked for you, so this might work for me. And that's a really fine line to tread, because it's because they might be afraid to go to therapy because of the stigma attached to it and all that type of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, we see it all the time, and it's always preempted with, oh, I'm not looking for medical advice, or I'm not looking for medical help or whatever. I just want to know what worked for other people. And then it gets even worse when they say, oh, if for people that have this condition and took this medication, how was it for you? And then they're like, well, I didn't take it yet, I'm just thinking about taking it. And they're self-diagnosing, and they're with the intention to self-medicate. And it's probably a tough position to be in for someone who's there to listen and offer guidance and advice, but at some point you have to stop the conversation and say, look, I've given you all these resources, this is as much as I can do on this particular track. We can talk about something else, or if you just want to talk, we can talk, but you kind of have to nudge them in that direction.
Yeah, you really do.
We've had this,
and
and I just wanted to pick off of what Justin said. We've had this happen at RFR. We have a wonderful online community and stuff like that, and we get people that they will. We don't mind if you're looking for support in a community and all that type of stuff. That's what we're there for. But occasionally we'll get these people who think that because we're a support network equals therapy or equals mental health. And we're not. And we've had to ban some people because the type of help they're looking for, we can't give.
Yeah,
it's beyond the scope of what we're trained to do.
We've had to ban people simply because they were outside of the scope of what we could offer them.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but it's unfortunate to even put it this way, but it's for their own good to take away this avenue of avoiding seeking professional help.
Yeah, and that directly bridges to what Aunt Jer is saying. I've had someone tell me suicide hotlines don't work for me. I've had bad experiences. I don't know where to go from there. And if they don't want to use the resources, I don't know how to pay. Because if you genuinely don't know how to help people, and if they refuse to either look at the resources or they've had bad experiences with those same resources, then that's just your sign to back off. Like, okay, well, I did my part in showing you the best resources I know, and maybe even redirected you to someone who had more resources than I do. But from there, that's all you can do. And you shouldn't feel guilty of that. I know one thing that's been a testament that RFR has been doing for the last year or so also is on Monday evenings through the Atheist Community of Discord. They've been live streaming their RFRX meetings, and on a weekly basis they've had various hosts like Mandisa and Candace Gorham, and of course Dr. Daryl Ray has been there, and various other individuals that have therapy licenses, experience, and things like that. So I've only on occasion tuned into those live streams myself, not as much recently, but when I do, they've been very engaging. I even from Stitix, I know he sometimes goes through even more so afterwards to tune into the Zoom ones where people pretty much stay online for hours after it's been ended.
Yeah, we've been up really late.
Talk. Yeah. I think that's like a standard kind of thing. And I'm like, that's cool. That's really cool.
And so if someone later on watches this program and doesn't know what the RFRX meeting would, that would be a meeting for the volunteers and leadership, just once a week to get together and like have a talk about that highlights one specific professional in the field.
RFRX is almost like a TED Talk in the secular, about a secular topic. So they bring in experts to talk about their particular field or their expertise. And there's a host and then a moderator, and they stream it out on Zoom, and then we restream it in the Discord server. And then they have and this is broadcasted, and it's eventually put on YouTube when Roland edits it.
I don't do that anymore, so do not give me any credit. I was an RFR volunteer. I am very, very inactive, and I used to do the editing for the videos. I have not in months, so do not credit me with those. I haven't done it since like March.
No, Eric's been kind of falling to that because he does the hosting, and now he's editing all the videos, and he keeps asking for help, and I'm like, and we're all like, I don't know how to edit those things, or everybody's too busy.
Yeah, so it's a long process, but they do eventually make it onto YouTube. So they have a YouTube channel that have all the videos, and then there's a not private but a more private Zoom group chat afterwards. That's not broadcasted, just where anybody can talk. The guest usually stays, and then you can ask questions and hang out and do the thing.
Indeed.
do the thing.
It's been a really good resource. Like I just co-hosted one this past Monday on skepticism with Eric, with one of our volunteers, Rob Palmer, who also his Facebook page is the Well-Known Skeptic. He writes for the Skeptical Inquirer. And he also does a lot. He's part of a guerrilla team on Wikipedia that edits wiki pages with correct resources, information, and stuff like that too, on like a bunch of different topics. Mostly have to do with skepticism and like false beliefs, like in psychics and mediums and all these different things that they've there's a bunch of people that have done like the research, and then they go into all the wiki pages and do editing. So he did a really good talk on skepticism and magical thinking and cognitive bias and all these different topics, which is really, really well done. And then so that they usually last about an hour to an hour and a half, and then we go and then if I'm not hosting, I'm usually there on Monday nights moderating the live talk and all that type of stuff that comes afterwards, and also like moderating the chat during the live stream that we do on Zoom. I'm looking for trolls, making sure everybody's being respectful in chat and stuff, because it's been a lot better lately since we changed the system that we let people in, but we got some really terrible people that would pop in and stuff like that, so it's getting a little bit better. So I do that as well on Mondays. So like I do a little bit of everything, but it's a great resource, and there's a bunch of different topics on the channel, and like I love them because I always learn something new. Like we did one a couple of months ago on like Orthodox Jews, which I, as a non-Jewish person, didn't really know a lot about, and I learned about all this extreme weird shit in that religion that was going on, and I just like learned all this stuff. I was like, I didn't know that happened, and it's like mind-blowing, like the type of stuff you'll learn from different perspectives and different people that have either grown up in certain communities and do activist work, or they're an expert in certain fields that they want to talk about.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Nate. Good to see you, sir. Nice to see you, Nate Smith. Nate Smith, friend of the show. Yeah. Oh no, Nate is cool. So fun. Oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. There was something I think either Stitix or Titan had mentioned, but I'll dive back into it. I know for one thing, I'll probably remember in a moment what I was trying to recall, but I know more specifically, I wanted to talk a bit about religious trauma syndrome. I know that's something that Dr. Daryl Ray heavily condones in his practice, and he has advocated for those therapists that are licensed to be contact therapists through the Secular Therapy Project for people to reach out to that look into that, also practice providing help for religious trauma syndrome. I know that's not exclusively with all therapists across the board that do so. So even for myself, I mean, it's no secret for me, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I've gone through several therapists. I lack consistently being with one now, so I am still in a sense seeking, but none of which have had the practice, or maybe just one, this last recent one, but I haven't really been in much contact with them, but haven't practiced or knew of the idea of religious trauma syndrome, because as you had said in the beginning, religion is masked as being a positive thing versus something that's negative to someone's life. So that's the unfortunate side effect when it comes to people within religion. And I think it can both work for people that are both believers and non-believers. This type of non-biased approach to recognizing certain traumas that originated to what a person is experiencing with their existing or current diagnosis, as far as why they're there in the first place. So I know for myself, recognizing what those traumas were that initiated the issues I currently have, as far as depression and anxiety and mood disorders, that is something that is heavily touched and is for me is associated with some religious trauma myself as well, albeit I've never been a person that's experienced sexual or physical abuse, and I'm not trying to lay any type of lower recognition to those that have, because that's just a whole other additional trauma in itself, and I hurt for those. But you definitely, someone's own personal experience and trauma is their own, and it's not to say one is lesser or more over the other. But I know the importance of those that practice religious trauma syndrome therapeutic methods is important and very key to really getting into what the issues are. Yeah.
So what I've heard a couple, fear of hell and you're broken, like, are the two things that I have heard people talk about a lot when on the subject of religious trauma, is trying to work through those thoughts that were embedded there a long time ago. I'm sure there's other things that would be specific, or more or less, depending on the type of denomination which guilt trip they like to push.
That's why something like the Secular Therapy Project is so important, because it's, even though they probably get training on it or read about it, I'm sure most therapy doesn't focus on it or even recognize religion as a prominent source of trauma. But if somebody's involved in something like the Secular Therapy Project, or they are trying to actively be a secular therapist, they're more likely to be familiar with these religious-based sources of issues.
I mean, like, I know it's like some of the research that I've done, and also from the work that I've done at RFR, that it's like therapists are aware of it, but a lot of therapists also come from a religious background. So they may be secular in practice, like they do the research and stuff like that, but because they might be a person of faith, treating someone with religious trauma syndrome may not be something they want to do, because then they would be confronting their own bias, so they may want to actively want to look up the therapies and things that they need to do to help someone like that, because we're human beings, and if we're coming up against something that gives us discomfort or goes against our belief system, we're not going to really want to engage with someone, even though they're suffering with that. If they're specifically suffering with a trauma related to religion, they may not want to grab onto that, because it will threaten their own sense of security and their own sense of self, especially if a lot of the religion is tied to their personality. So that creates conflict as well, so, because if you're dealing with normal trauma triggers like sexual abuse, domestic child abuse, emotional neglect, all those different things, that's not going to be as heavy as someone that's dealing with trauma that has to do with that's related to religion, especially if you're already in a place where you don't think religion is bad, that it can't cause harm. So that can cause some issues as well for a therapist. And I think, and I think that gets a little bit sticky, because like if you're like a regular MD, religion might play a role, but still you got to perform surgery or, perform a treatment. But if you're but a lot of psychology is emotional connections and mental, helping people with their mental, emotional journeys and helping them be better people. And if their trauma is connected to religion, it's going to cause a conflict, and how do you handle it with that which, therapists practice differentiation is separating themselves from their client, but it can get kind of sticky if you're if your client is telling you this particular experience, like, you know, of being in a religion has hurt me and I don't know what to do with it. And if that therapist is connected to their religion in a really deep way and doesn't see it as damaging, they're going to have a hard time making those emotional and mental connections that their client needs.
Yeah, they're going to be looking for, they'll be looking for some other source of the problem.
Exactly. You know, and that's a hard thing too, because when you're if you're dealing in mental emotional health, is knowing what that separation is. You know, and good therapists like know where to find that separation and give good therapy, but it's a difficult thing for the therapists that I know and have talked to, is finding a good separation between the two, because therapy is very, very involved on an emotional and mental level. So it, you know, I can understand why it can be kind of, you know, upsetting to some therapists, you know, and I'm not saying that like, it's just some of the articles and stuff that I've read, and like, obviously, like, I'm not a therapist and I don't know, but from talking to other therapists and stuff like that, I can see that it might cause a little bit of triggering and stuff like that. But obviously I'm not a professional, so I'm just kind of, you know, doing a little anecdotal evidence, but just from being an empathetic person, I could imagine it can cause some issues.
Oh, sure. No, certainly. Yeah. That is a very sensitive, because religion, almost to the same degree as, you know, someone's political stance, is very close, can be potentially very closely attached to a person's, like you said, personality, who they are, who they identify themselves as. I know that is very like we had discussed last 2 weeks ago when we were diving into like the subculture of Black atheism culture. Black culture is heavily linked with, you know, being Christian or just being religious as a whole. You don't necessarily have to be Christian, but predominantly Black people are known to be Christian more than they are of the Islamic faith or Catholic and others. So when you find yourself in that situation, and how closely linked your culture, your personal self is identified or linked to a religion, can be extremely, extremely difficult to separate the two. And once you do, you find yourself at a loss. You find yourself like, oh, now I can't really self-identify who I really am as a person, because, you know, I assume that this was my life and it has been my life for so long. Now I'm in even more deeper suffering because, you know, I have the trauma of what this religion has indoctrinated me into and taught me, which I now believe is false. But now I don't even know who I am as a person without all of that. And I don't even know who to really talk to in regards to finding out who or what type of person I am and who am I really without being in faith. And something that Eddie had said I wanted to bring up, which kind of dials back to me mentioning, you know, going through seeking a secular therapist can be both beneficial for believers and non-believers. Some theists have been through a deconstruction like me, and I have no issue facing alternative views and have some insight on it. I was harmed by fundamentalism. Sound it out, Jenna, sound it out. So, and you know, that's a very unique and interesting case, Eddie. And I'm certain there have been a few others that have identified that way as well. I can certainly say I've, at some point in my life, have identified that kind of aspect where I still held on to faith, but really kind of breaking down all of what faith meant to me and saw the harm it was causing me, but still wanted to try and believe, and found, you know, evidences and excuses for myself to hang on to that. So it's a really breaking down of identifying all that can take years and take a lot of mental exhaustion, physical exhaustion, to really try to get to a place where you need to be. So that is a very fascinating and unique look at that type of idea. let's see, what do I want to do? I wanted to say something additional, but please, I've been kind of vamping all this time.
I mean,
hi, new people in the chat, though. Hello.
Yes,
welcome.
we have a bunch of friends who have joined us on the Twitch part. I mean, the whole thing is like, you know, we can look at both of the aspects of religion where you can't deny that they provide community, they provide comfort, they provide answers to people. You know, they provide a lot of, you know, quote unquote good things to people, and some people put their entire worldview into that, but then depending on what kind of religion they're in, they get hit with some of the worst parts, like purity culture and you know, the fear of hell and being called a sinner and being called broken. But you kind of intermingle the good and the bad, and it's hard to just completely tear apart your entire, you know, worldview, both the good and the bad, and trying to reconcile that. Like, even if we hear that, like, there's this great charity, but someone in the charity is a terrible person, and maybe you shouldn't support that charity. It's like, well, it's hard to disentangle the bad and the good when they cover such a broad or a very cherished part of your identity or your values.
And none of those good things all of those good things can be found in the secular community too. You don't need to have the religious community to get those good things. Mm-hmm. You can have mm-hmm. friendship here. You can have togetherness. You can have charity here too, and that's an important thing to get across to a lot of people Absolutely. Who are just starting to cross over. Is that those things that they think they're going to be missing? Those good parts are still here, because those are human. Those aren't necessarily religious. Those are human things.
Yeah, the resources available for those things are not as robust and ubiquitous as religion. There's not a secular hangout spot on every corner like there are churches, but mm-hmm. you know, the more people deconvert, the more places of resources there will be, and at, you know, at the rate the numbers are changing, but and shows like this and meetups and organizations, they're popping up all over the place. And there's just huge communities for it now, and it's growing incredibly rapidly. But there's still a lot of pockets, a lot of cities and towns where you might be the only atheist you've ever met in your whole life,
or so you thought, yeah,
or that you know, right?
Right.
And so that's still a concern for a lot of people in a lot of areas. You know, fortunately, you can go online and find a group to kind of alleviate that a little bit, but you know, there's still it's not like a church where they're just you know, the whole group of people who think like you around the corner.
Right, they're just really there in that one particular building that you can go every Monday.
Ready-made family, ready-made support.
I mean, now if you go to
10%,
if you go to an in-person D&D game, you're most likely to find, you know, be amongst friends, but you know, you never know.
That's good point. Good point. And, you know, that's what you were saying, Justin. That's so true, because I know with my conversation with Bar, he said himself, like, he has yet to meet a not just to say a Black atheist, just an atheist in general in person where he lives. Mm-hmm. So the difficulty of really finding someone to physically in the world that you live in to attach with, converse with, see maybe on a daily basis or every other day, whatever, meet up on a weekend, that's difficult. And the accessibility is so, you know, so rewarding to have, not only online, but to have that physicality with someone is even more, you know, fulfilling, because now it doesn't just feel like something, not to say all of us here aren't genuinely friends or real people or real friends or anything of that, but to actually have someone, you know, face to face, 6 feet, albeit, but you know, just there,
have someone you. bubble to bubble,
your face, just someone there to interact with without, you know, the virtual aspect is, you know, that's a good feeling, obviously. The same, you know, feeling people that, you know, like you said, that go to church and see each other every Sunday. So
or go to play D&D.
Or yes, or go play D&D.
Warhammer.
Did someone say play D&D? Are we doing playing D&D?
Valheim, I hear, is good. You know, maybe we get a Valheim server going.
Multi, you playing a lot of video games, I've been hearing, so you need to knock it off. No.
Yeah. No,
what have you been playing?
I've been spending a lot of time in server doing some 7 Days to Die. We've pretty much tunneled out an entire mountain and have made a complex in there. And then when Horde Day comes, we just open up the gates and it's just a murder tunnel that we just throw bullets down. Yeah. And gain XP. And then, so it's just trying to design, see what happens, design and then you're going out and getting the resources so you can build a better murder tunnel. Yeah.
Secular Rarity is joking, but we've actually done this before.
We've done this, and now he's, semi-officially taking the mantle right now because Mikey does this in regards to, Ollie Man. But, our lovely Mikey Famine is getting married, so he's away for a while. So, there's that.
Oh,
congratulations!
With Roland, when Roland was DMing, we never got off the beach, did we?
You didn't Your characters are standing in the middle of a fight right now.
Yep.
Justin is bleeding everywhere because he was mortally wounded.
On the floor, I think.
He's dying slowly.
Just summoned your reindeer.
The last game I ran with Ollie and our friends, they're in a haunted tower that they just killed a bunch of monsters. They're supposed to kill more monsters, but they're all waiting. They're all in stasis on a pause screen.
There's a few games that are like that right now.
I started my own game in the ACDC D&D server, and we had our second session. Well, our second full party session Wednesday, but I had session zeros with everybody, with all the different players, so that got them from point A to the first point of the campaign, so they weren't just kind of like all pulled in at this random the first time.
Yeah, they have their own point of view chapter.
Well, it actually worked out not as much as I intended, but they all interacted with the big kind of overarching narrative in different ways. So they all have little pieces of knowledge about what's going on with the world at this moment.
Okay.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
They had their they have the solo movies. And now you're just waiting for Infinity War or Endgame.
Or essentially that's a good analogy, I guess.
So we can turn you into a D&D nerd. We can do it. You be part of.
We're gonna He was a cleric who worked with Santa Claus when we played our D&D on this.
That's right.
It was great.
That.
He summoned Rudolph and blinded some of the enemies, and I'm like, all right, I'll go with it. That sounds plausible.
You have to admit that was a boss move. That was a boss move. But anyway, sorry, I totally diverged the conversation, or maybe Justin did. I don't know. I'll blame him. But final question.
I know, you're with a bunch of nerds. So they'll fall down a D&D hole.
We all failed our dexterity checks, and we fell down the hole.
That's right.
Oh, exactly. I made my dex check and jumped in.
Really, Justin, you found the banner. I thought I did.
That banner is just waiting on deck.
It's just waiting. It's waiting on deck. I want to ask this final thing for you, HellsBells. Thank you.
Okay.
Just for you to, and you don't have to give names. You don't have to really personally identify a particular person you've spoken with or anything like that. But name a particular situation, both a situation you were really comfortable with handling and it was good conversation, or even maybe you had even a long extended conversation with said individual, and name a situation where you found it so very difficult for you to either deal with personally, affected you very heavily emotionally, something like that, just to kind of give us your own experience as a volunteer.
Now to think.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So most of my interactions in RFR have been mostly because I don't. Okay, I think it's because my transition of religion wasn't very traumatic. I grew up lightly Catholic, but it wasn't. It was more we're Catholic because my mom was Catholic and her mom was Catholic, and my dad didn't go to church, and it wasn't this huge thing. It was just something we did. And when I left, my family was just like, okay, like I didn't go through like this angst of like, what is my family going to do if I leave religion or whatever. So I didn't go through like a lot of trauma and disparity over it. You know, mine was more of learning to become more skeptical and get out of that magical thinking brain and stuff like that. So that was my journey. So relating that back to recovering from religion, when people are talking to me about their different experiences and stuff like that, I tend not to be triggered about when it comes to those things because I'm too emotionally distant. You know, when it comes to that, I'm more just trying to because like a lot of RFR uses like a lot of street epistemology. We're always just we're helping people logically think through things. Like if they have a fear of hell, we're asking them questions like, why do you have that fear? And, you know, can you prove there's a hell? It's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of street epistemology that we're just helping people
interesting.
work that stuff out. And then if they do bring up emotions, we validate them. Well, I'm afraid because of this. And I'm like, I understand that you're afraid. You know, we don't dismiss it. And I think that helps a lot of people understand. Because I always say, like, no matter when anyone's having emotion, I say feelings are going to feel. Like your feelings are you're going to have emotions. Like I never say there's positive or negative emotions, that your emotions are there. It's what you do with those emotions. And part of that is helping people think about how their thoughts are connected to their emotions and kind of bridging the gap between the two and just helping them logically think about things, you know? And so I've had really positive conversations where people have said, you know, that I really helped them work some stuff out. I remember one particular conversation I had with this guy, and he had made like a bunch of like leaps in thinking. Like he started connecting like one conversation that he had to like a TV show he watched that had a particular title, and that connected to an emotion he was having and some doubts he was having. It was like, you know, he was looking for the dots and trying to connect them together. And I kind of walked him through how that's a logical fallacy. Just because you're looking for a pattern doesn't mean that it relates to anything bigger and stuff like that. And I just kind of helped him like, and I also said, I'm not discounting your experience, but I'm just trying to give you a different perspective of, you know, how you're connecting things together. And at the end of the conversation, he said to me, you know, you gave me a new way to think about it and to look at it a little bit more logically than emotionally, you know. And so that was a kind of an impactful conversation that I have. I'm just helping him work that shit out, you know, because he said that he goes, I'm so used to attaching things that happen into my life to my emotions. And I go, that's usually what we do as human beings.
Yeah.
But I also said, I go, I didn't, but I go, all I'm saying is that just because you have certain experiences and you're looking for a pattern doesn't mean the pattern is leading you anywhere. It's just something that happened, you know. And you know, but I did it in more of a, like, I'm being a little more candid now. I was a little bit more like softer and a little bit more logical in my approach when I had this conversation. So that helped a little bit, you know, that helped him out a little bit. And the only time I get more of the issues that I have is when I hear about like abuse that happens, especially sexual abuse, because we do get some people that have experienced sexual trauma through religion, or they were taught to deal with sexual trauma through religion, like, you know, or some of the stuff has to do with like, you know, purity culture and stuff like that, that leads to a lot of sexual guilt, or you know, this idea that, you know, if a woman was like sexually assaulted or whatever, it had to do with like the way she was dressed or presenting herself, which is all bullshit. But it's all wrapped up in that religious shit. And because I'm a survivor of sexual trauma, it kind of, that's when I tend to find things a little bit more difficult, because I have to hold back my anger and go through the steps of being the support system that they're looking for and stuff like that. So I don't really have an issue having those conversations with people and that sort of thing. So that's where I tend to struggle a little bit, but we do get people that are really struggling and they can't let go of some of the logical fallacies that they have. Like, well, what if I do? What if God does? Like, what do I do if I release my belief in God? Like, what kind of person I'm going to be, you know? And they have a very hard time. Like, they're dealing with these really deep doubts about like if a God exists, but they don't know what their life is going to look, because if, like, let's say you're like my age, you're 44, you've had 44 years of believing in a God, you hit a stone wall, what does your life look like afterwards? Like,
yeah,
you know, if your job, your family, you know, your social circle is all connected in religion, what
and for
do
that
you
to all
do when
dramatically
you leave?
change,
Yeah.
wow,
And you
yeah.
have that paradigm shift, it's traumatic. So I hear a lot of, we do hear a lot of that, because that's why usually people are calling in, because they don't know what it's going to look like and what do they do, because it's too big.
Well,
So those are the harder conversations.
Yeah, I mean, look at like the Clergy Project.
Yeah.
Where there's people who, you know, work in churches and preach the stuff, and they no longer believe it, but they don't know what else to do.
Yeah, they don't have skills to do other work.
This is their education, their career, their family, their friends, their livelihood, how they support their families, and they don't know what else to do. I mean, there's a, you know, an alternate way of looking at it is, you know, they just go to work and do a job just like the rest of us. You may not like your job, but you do it to pay the bills. But you know, this job is different in that you're telling people how to think and what to believe. But once you start being bad at it, you start losing your way to support yourself and your family. But you know, these are people that at least have that going on. I'm sure there's people that don't have you know, this type of community to turn to in that situation.
Yeah, because I just got into a conversation the other night with one of our members in the virtual live chat, and they were talking about how they get angry that because there's a lot of people behind the pulpit that don't believe it anymore, but they still preach. And my kind of, you know, I'm willing to give a little bit of a pass on that, because the idea that like you have no other other skills, like, you know, it's like, you know, you don't have training in a secular job, you know, and like sometimes your housing and where your kids go to school and all that stuff is connected to where you preach, where you work and stuff like that. And it's like, I understand that you're mad because you feel like they're lying, but the alternative, especially, you know, it's hard if you're just a layman, you know, and you're deeply entrenched in religion to go through that shift. But if you're part of the clergy, it's a whole other bag that they have to deal with. So I'm a little bit more, and I can understand the frustration, the anger that comes from that, because they feel like they're being, like, you know, they're willingly lying and stuff like that. And I tend to be like, I understand, you know, I understand the frustration and I understand your emotions, but on the other side, I can also understand that the move may be too big for some of these people to go through that huge life alternating shift. you know.
This isn't the only like industry or job or something where that kind of stuff happens with. I mean, there's other systems or beliefs or positions that people hold that are very critical to their life. Like look, something like veganism or other types of activism. Like if you work at a some meat production or factory farming facility, and there's people that are very, very, very vehement about their vegan beliefs. But and then you have this job, and then now you watch this documentary, and it changed your mind and your worldview on this position. What do? You just quit tomorrow and hope for the best. That's scary, and you lose and a lot of these people, especially in the clergy, I'm sure, is that all of their friends are there, all of their family is there, everybody they've ever known, and the people that aren't there, they probably pushed them away a long time ago, or the people that aren't part of that group.
Right. No kidding. The level of difficulty when it comes for a person trying to even recognize where the trauma lies that brought them to their mental disability is an effort in and all of itself, because one, you could unconsciously repress all that for yourself just for your own kind of safety. You could deliberately want to not bring that up just again for your own safety, or it just takes so much time and so much diligent effort from support groups, from licensed non-biased secular therapists, from all sorts of people, community, family, any type of help that can help guide them to reach that conclusion of where this trauma started and how we can work about at least stabilizing one's mental health. And it may not be something that can be resolved at all in life. It could come easy for some and harder for others, but there at least can be better efforts and better recognition to moving people towards secular therapists that understand religious trauma syndrome and understand the steps necessary to guide a person to at least be stable enough throughout their life. So that work aside is important, but the work that you do along with other volunteers for RFR is very important too, for being those active listening ears. And we thank you for doing that tough work as well, because that's hard too in and of itself, because you, like you had expressed, you had to refrain from being too emotional and angry when it came to a traumatic experience that you self-identified with, and you have to say, I have to stop and, do the duty I volunteered to do. So thank you, HellsBells, for doing that duty appropriately. So that's commendable.
You, and and also too, whether you're every type of active, doing this podcast and talking about a bunch of different topics, being part of RFR, being an skeptical, channel on YouTube, if you're, going out in the community and doing talks, this is how we as a community, whatever small piece you're doing something to help somebody, because one person's going to hear that podcast or hear that talk or call into RFR, and we don't know the type of impact we're having, but because we're coming of a place of genuine wanting of care and wanting to help and wanting to make our voices heard, that hey, we've been through this too, and now we're on this other side, and you can be part of this movement too. We're all helping everyone, that one person that's sitting in the pew going, I don't buy this shit anymore. We're helping them transition out and become better people. And that's that's the goal that we're all doing right now.
Right. I think you earned your right to be a rotating panel on this podcast. I don't know. What do you say, Justin?
Yes,
please, Justin.
Awesome. Well, I love you guys. I love you guys so much.
Yeah, no, it's great. And then plus I need another woman here. I need another girl. I'm by myself. Help. It would be much appreciated.
Another cis girl.
Yeah, need another cis girl, please. So yeah, she's coming back. So against her will or not, we will see her next week. HellsBells, thank you so much for sharing all that you do.
You're gonna trap HellsBells in the basement, aren't you?
Thank you for having me on. This is
getting crowded in the basement.
So happy
with all the people you force on here.
If it comes to having to shackle her to my basement, then
quite the collection down there.
We're all fine. We just play D&D together. I mean, we have nothing else to do down there.
You can entertain yourself with Roland and play D&D in the basement until I release you every Thursday. Anyways,
can you just give us a couple of cots, please?
But you don't enjoy the cuddle puddle we get into, Kelly. I'm sorry.
That's 37 pillows in her room and refuses to share one of them.
Now I need to join Kenneth's basement.
So first of all, these pillows are not to be laying on. They're decorative, okay? So get that shit straight.
So useless.
Right. Stop
it. Purposeless pillows.
Anyways, Ollie Man, I saw that you were linking the Discord link in the chat. Thank you so much for doing so. Please, by all means, folks, if you're I can't talk. Sorry. Ran out of breath. If you're not already in our Discord, International Free Thinkers, please go ahead and join and click on the link that was distributed in the chat by a good old Ollie Man, or you can go and sign in on the website at tiny.cc/IFDC. We are going to have a little bit in an after show to continue this discussion or continue other discussions or just shoot the shit, whatever you like to do. We'll be there for a little tidbit. Of course, we'll be back next week. What the topic is, I don't know, but you'll be finding out soon later on in the week once we kind of work all that out.
Yeah.
By all means.
Most of us don't get to find out what that topic is until 5 minutes before the show. So
okay, so for one,
I am most of us.
No prep time. We get the research nothing. We just show up.
Let me just say this: the topic was displayed at 3:30 a.m. last night. I know because I displayed it at 3:30 a.m. last night, and it was put in the Discord link. So I don't know why you missed it. Anyway. So that's your own damn fault. Tweet us, follow us at see what I have to go through, HellsBells. I need you. Tweet us at weed_sober. Right. Let us know what your comments, likes and dislikes about the conversation, suggestions about future conversations, revisiting old conversations. By all means, let us know. Continue to support and share the link to this podcast and our Discord so that we can continue. I'm talking too fast. I'm running out of air. Continue to do great things.
I'm wearing that mask all week.
Oh yeah, all that carbon dioxide.
Yeah, it was that mask all week.
God damn it, Hawaii. Anyways, that's all for tonight. Glad to be back. Thank you all, everyone, new subscribers, new viewers, old viewers. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you in the Discord, and we'll also see you next week. Bye-bye.